Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. It is 7 o'clock, at least by my clock, and I have a lot to get through, so I'm going to try to get going quickly and get going. I'm not going to really stop for questions or comments, but if you have one, please feel free to throw that hand up in the air, and I will call on you. So this is something that I've thought about for a while. I struggle thinking about failure and my failures in particular. And so I wanted to try to take a look at, as the slide says, a better way to look at failure. Are we being too pessimistic with ourselves and our successes and failures and the actions that we take? So I've got 6 questions that I want to pose, and then we'll look at those as we go. So the first one, is failure inevitable? Obviously. Of course it is. I think failure is rather synonymous with the human condition. Nobody has not failed at something. Most of us have failed at quite a few things, if we're honest with ourselves. Just look at the first 2 people that were ever walking around on this earth. You can't get past Genesis chapter 2 without seeing a human fail. It doesn't take long in our history to see that we mess up. And look at the quote-unquote heroes of the Bible that we look at and that we admire. Take Moses. He was called the most humble man that ever lived. He murdered a guy. He was disobedient. David, a man after God's own heart, he succumbed to lust and adultery, and he committed murder to try to cover up the adultery. And later on in his life, he succumbed to pride, and he attempted to number the people. Peter, the most glaring one of his is he denied Christ. He also failed to have enough faith to walk on water, and he later on denied the Gentile Christians and had to be called out for that. We fail in our lives at even the most simplest of tasks. How many times do you see kids falling down when they're walking, or when they're trying to learn to walk, or learning to use the toilet, trying to tie their shoes? Failure is more commonplace in our lives than I think we'd like to admit. So, if failure is inevitable, then why do we fear it so much? Why do we hate it? Why do we fear it? Why do we almost not even want to acknowledge or recognize that it's in our lives? It's embarrassing. Nobody wants to, but it is embarrassing to fail in front of people, or to fail privately, but most of all, in front of people. Besides death, what are most people afraid of? Exactly. That's it. People are as afraid, if not more afraid, of public speaking than they are of death. Why? Exactly. They're afraid of making a mistake and making a fool of themselves in front of other people. I hate being asked to teach. I hate seeing my name under the sermon or devotion column in the roster. I don't like doing this, because I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I do it. I make myself do it because I know it's good for me, and I know it'll help me grow, and I know I need to. Yes, ma'am.
Well, along those same lines, I feel like as someone who's been in a lot of schools, both elementary and some in high school, our kids, we're kind of like coddling them because we're not letting them experience that uncomfortable situation of what happens, the possibility of failure.
Yeah.
Doing things that are hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be detrimental. We see it in our society with their young people because they're so afraid of doing hard things that they just stop.
Yeah. It bothers. It really makes me nervous. I get anxious. I was walking around at 5 o'clock at the house, just like, I hate this feeling. I hate this feeling. It terrifies me. There was about a year ago, I said something in a Wednesday night talk at the very beginning that before I got up here, I was sitting there and I looked at my heartbeat on my watch, and it was like over 140 beats per minute. I was nervous. And I'm wondering, am I going to be able to do a good job? Am I going to be able to get through this without crying? Who knows? It doesn't always work. Song leaders, have you ever opened your book and tried to lead a song and it was a completely different song than the one that was on the page? I've done that. It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
I forgot to tune for Jesus Loves Me while leading singing.
Well, there you go. Mine wasn't that bad, but yeah. Now I think mine was there's at least a couple songs in the book that are titled the same but are different songs. I called out the number for one. I started leading the other one, so that's not fun. I remember this was when I was a kid. You probably still remember it. Dad was preaching one Sunday morning, had a nice suit on, new pair of dress shoes, leather soles. I don't know if you know this. New dress shoes with leather soles are super slippery on carpet until you get them scuffed up a little bit. He takes a couple steps up there and just whoop. He almost lost it.
I did not miss one of that.
He almost lost it.
Is that on live stream?
No, that was way before. I was a kid when that happened. But even as a kid, I was embarrassed for him. But he handled it. He handled it like a pro. It can be damaging to your self-esteem. Most of us are our own worst critics. We are very harsh on ourselves when it comes to things that we do. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be playing sports. It could be schoolwork. It could be anything. We have a tendency to see the worst in ourselves. We see the mistakes when somebody else looking from the outside could very possibly see nothing but success, see nothing wrong whatsoever. And I'm bad about that too. And it's something that I struggle with. Moses struggled with it, obviously. You look at his encounter with God in front of the burning bush. When God said, I want you to go to Egypt and I want you to lead my people out, he didn't just say, yeah, sounds good, let's go do it. He obviously was scared. He didn't believe in himself. The first thing he said was, they're not going to believe me. Then he said, I'm not an eloquent enough speaker. And then he finally just straight up asked God to send somebody else. He didn't believe he could do it. God obviously knew. God came to him specifically and asked him to go do this task. And he did not believe in himself enough to do it. It causes anxiety. Like I said, I've been anxious for about the past hour and a half about doing this. I'm starting to calm down a little bit. We'll see how it goes farther on. So just think about 9 or 10 years ago or so, I was in the middle of looking for a job, and I had two job offers in front of me. One was with a company that was well established, been around for years, very, on the surface, a very safe choice. I didn't have any interest in it. The other hand, I had one, it was a startup company, probably 80 or less employees, not on paper the most safe option. I spent days trying to analyze which one do I do, which one do I take. I couldn't help but think, like, what if this, I was excited about that one, but it's a startup. What if something goes wrong? What if they lose money? What if the company goes under? What do I do then? What if it doesn't work out? It took me forever to try to figure out which one of those. I was afraid of making the wrong decision. I was afraid of failing. And it's because we get that way because we can't see into the future. It's hard to predict. Failure is uncomfortable. Most of the time, the things that we fail at are things that we're either new at or things that we're unfamiliar with. I do a lot of handyman stuff around the house, fixing things, making upgrades, different things like that. And most of the time, I'm not afraid to go outside my comfort zone. But when it comes to stuff like electrical, I don't mess around too much. Mostly because I could burn down the house or I could die. and I'm just not a fan of those two things. I like to stick to the things that I can reasonably predict the outcome. And that's it, it's more comfortable. There's less of a chance of me messing up or failing if I stick to that. It's catastrophizing. And I wish James was here because I picked this word specifically for him because he likes big, fancy words. It is a word, I promise. So this is basically, we have a tendency to expect the absolute worst case scenario. We go into something and we expect the worst outcome. And this makes me think of the parable of the talents and the guy that only got the one talent. I think that's what made him do what he did. He expected the worst out of his master. And it even says, he even tells his master, like, why did you do this? He says, I knew you to be a hard man. I knew you to be someone who sowed where you did not reap and gathered where you did not spread seed. He was crippled by his expectation of the worst case scenario. So, is failure bad? Well, duh. I mean, we just spent a few minutes talking about all kinds of things, reasons why failure is bad. Of course it's bad. We wouldn't be afraid of it if it wasn't bad. It's the difference between victory and defeat. Just think about it in sports terminology. You're in a very important game, a basketball game. You take a three at the buzzer to win the game and you miss. Your team's out. You failed. How awful would that feel to you? That would be awful. I remember my very first, at least the one that I can remember, my very first failure at my first professional job. I still remember it to this day. I remember exactly what happened. I remember exactly what I did. I remember coming in. I caused overnight processes to halt, and in turn, reports that the business side of the company were waiting for didn't run, so they didn't have what they needed to start their day. And so people are scrambling around trying to get all these reports run, and it's my fault. I know exactly what I have never forgot that. That was 15 years ago? This is about 14, 15 years ago. I know exactly what I did. And I caused a lot of irritation, to say the least, for a lot of people because of my one mistake. Failure can be costly. You fail to meet a deadline at your job, you could lose your job. If you make a bad investment and it turns sour, you could lose a lot of money. You could lose your house. You do something wrong, doing something with electrical, you could lose your life. It could cost you a lot. And your house, yes. And even spiritually speaking, there can be eternal consequences for it too. Sin is nothing more than a spiritual failure. And if we mess up, that could cost us our eternal soul. And that is scary. That's scary. So, what does failure do to us as humans, as people? What does it cause us to do? It can be a negative influence on our lives, on our self-image. We can look at ourselves negatively. We tell ourselves that we're not good at anything. We can not start or give up even before we start. We assume, like we said before, we assume that we're going to fail, and we're just a very negative self-image, and it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I do a lot of woodwork. I developed a love for carpentry and woodworking my senior year of high school, and so I've built a lot of things over the years, and almost everything that I've ever made, I can go and I can show you little spots on those items that I messed up on, down to the minutest detail. And most of y'all probably couldn't see it if I pointed at it to you, but I see it. I can't help but see it. even things that are washed over and even I can't physically see, I know it's there. And I see it in my mind every time I look at it. We all know Murphy's Law, if anything bad can happen, it's going to happen. There's a different part of Murphy's Law that I found while preparing for this that says the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. I like that. And I think that's the case because we don't stop thinking about the negative enough to think about what could go right. And it cripples us. Who procrastinates? Well, some of y'all are lying. I am really guilty of this, and I'll tell you why. I'm so afraid of doing a bad job. I did this in high school, and I do it now. In high school, I was afraid of getting bad grades. Now, doing this, I put it off because I just, like, in my head, I know this is stupid to think this way, but the way I think is if I really try and I really give a good effort and I don't do well, that's worse than not trying and not doing well. Anybody else? Is that just me? Okay, that's okay. There's that too, but that's the way I think. And I know it's so stupid, but that's the way I feel, and it causes me to either not try at all, or I wait to the last second and have to really cram and just work longer and more frantically than I would have had to if I'd have just done the smart thing and put the work in before. It can also cause us to just not do it at all. Just give up because we assume we're going to fail, so what's the point? What's the point of putting in the work and the effort and all that time and mental and physical energy if it's not going to work out for us anyway? So, what do we do? How do we get over this fear of failure? The first thing I think you got to do, you just got to accept it. There is no getting around it. We already discussed that. Failure is inevitable. You're gonna. That's just the cold hard truth. Just accept the fact and embrace the fact that failure is a necessary part of life. It's a necessary part of growth and getting better at anything. Get better at walking, get better at talking, get better at public speaking. You're gonna make mistakes. I remember the very first time public speaking that I really made an effort to not say and I had to make just almost every pause in between every word. I had to think, don't say don't say don't say And I don't have to think about that much anymore. Have I been saying I haven't even been paying attention. Okay, good. All right.
I'd like to say this.
Yes, sir.
When I've made mistakes, and I did them, what did I learn from that?
Don't get ahead of me. Don't get ahead of me. We'll get there. We'll get there. But you're absolutely right. But like you said, you admit it. That's the next thing. Take ownership of it. It's your fault. You messed up. Don't try to blame somebody else for that. Nobody likes that guy. Take ownership of your mistake. It's okay. Failing is not the end of the world. Take ownership of it. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like we said, it's going to be uncomfortable. Failing stinks. I remember also at my first job, I was in a meeting, my boss was there, he was giving me a task to do, and I, half joking, half not joking, said, "Ooh, I don't like that, that makes me uncomfortable." And after the meeting, sometime after the meeting, he walked by my desk, didn't say a word, didn't stop, didn't slow down. He walked by, put a piece of paper on my desk, and that's all it had on it. And I kept that piece of paper for years because it's so stupidly simple, but it's also pretty profound. And that really struck me. And he didn't try to make it better. He just left that on my desk. And that's why it's so hard for us to get over our fear of failure, because we have a nice little bubble and it's comfortable there. We feel good. There's not a whole lot we can mess up there. But where the magic happens is getting outside our comfort zone in a possible area where we can make a mistake or fail. Yes, ma'am.
And that was what I said earlier about kids in school and everything. And that's the thing, is they're not getting that, whatever chemical rush that happens when you do something that's hard, that sense of accomplishment. They're not getting that kind of feedback, let's say, past
Yeah.
the comfort zone and go to where that magic is.
Yeah.
And so that's when we've got these stagnant kids.
Success is addictive, I think. But that always struck me, and I like that. So the next thing is prepare for it. You can prepare for failure if you want. There's all kinds of there's organizations and groups and stuff like that prepare for failure. Hospitals have backup generators just in case the power goes out. They're not left without ways to get their job done. And very data-driven companies nowadays, there's disaster recovery plans where they store data off-site somewhere in case their power goes down. People can still access their data other places. Even in my world, the software development world, you go through risk assessment. When you're creating something new, a new piece of software, something like that, you go through a process of creating a risk assessment document. What is this going to harm other aspects of our existing system? If something happens, how easy will it be to identify and fix and all that kind of stuff? There's risk mitigation kind of things. You can look at other people's mistakes. That's one that I think I haven't been always good at doing. We can learn a lot from if you'll just open your eyes and watch other people. There's all kinds of people making mistakes around us. And if we're smart enough to open our eyes and see it, we can say, that's not very smart. I might not want to do that in the future. We can also use our own failings as preventative measures. I've got a lot of scars on my hand, on my left hand, because I'm right-handed. All these scars represent failures. And I can tell you in minute detail what happened with every single one of them. Obviously, I didn't do enough learning from my own mistakes to keep there from being so many scars on my hand. But I know now. There's a lot of these are from knives. There's one on my finger here from sticking my hand in a still moving miter saw. I know not to do that now. I know not to do that now. So prepare for it. Ma'am?
I did it slow. Sometimes it's called learning the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. So prepare for it. And then one of the ones that's probably the simplest but also the hardest is to just keep going. The easiest thing to do is to just give up. It's frustrating. It's irritating. You don't want another experience of failure. It's hard to just keep going. There's a quote that's attributed to Thomas Edison. It says, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." And that's so true. That's true. That's so true. And it's true for us spiritually. If we make a fall, ma'am.
Think about all the inventions that we have. I mean, we're sitting under electric lights.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times it took Edison to finally get the right formula there? And the same thing with so many things that we actually enjoy today. But they have a fear.
Sure. Yeah.
learned to swim because my dad pushed me in the river. And I was afraid of water. And I went, "It's a river, Dad, it's a river." And he said, "Yeah, but it's a little one." But, and then I learned that I like what you're saying here. Learn to accept it and prepare for it and keep going. That's amazing right there.
Well, how many times do we see, said at the beginning, that watching little children learn how to do all the things that we do without even thinking, walking. They fall constantly. They might cry, they might get fussy. I've even seen them get so frustrated that they start crawling again just because that's easier than at the moment than walking. So they just revert to something that's something more than they're used to. But we don't let them quit. They still need to learn to walk. Got potty training. We were bad at potty training. It was not fun. It was not. But you can't just sit there and let them keep soiling themselves. That's gross. So you gotta keep at it. You gotta just push harder. The only time that you really fail is when you stop. That's the only real failure. We've all heard that if you fall off a horse, you got to get right back up and get back on that horse again. That's the only way you're going to win. That's the only, and that's I like the parable of the talents. And we're going to look at let's look at the other two guys, the 5 talent and the 2 talent guy. You can't convince me that those two guys didn't have some failures along the way. The 5 talent guy made 5 more. The 2 talent guy made 2 more. I don't believe for a second that they went out one time and made 5 and 2 more talents. They did some trading. They probably lost one day, lost a couple another day. But they didn't give up. They kept going back, and they were in the end successful. And that's what it takes. That you push harder. You keep going. So what do we do to make it a positive outcome? What do we do with our failure? As Mr. Jim and Miss Linda said, we learn, we grow. Are you repeatedly making the same mistakes? If you wanted to look at my left hand, there's 3 separate scars of me cutting myself. I didn't learn. There's one, the biggest one's right here, and like I said, I can tell you minute detail about each and every one of them. But I remember doing this one. We had to go to the hospital, but right after I did that, I called Dad. And I said, "Do you remember what you told me never to do with a knife? Don't cut toward yourself." Well, yep, I made the same mistake a few times. I didn't learn.
Those scars aren't from Rachel trying to force that ring on your finger?
Oh, no. Hers might be. I remember pretty much every significant mistake in my life, physical or just living life, whatever. I remember the ones that affected me the most in my life or on my body or spiritually, whatever. I remember them. And we're supposed to. We're absolutely supposed to remember those things. And we're not supposed to let them hold us back. We're not supposed to constantly be looking over our shoulder. But we are absolutely supposed to use those failures in the future to keep us. It should be easier to navigate life as we go forward because we know what not to do because we've already done it. If we let it, failure can be a fantastic teacher. And it should be. What did Yoda say about failure?
Do or do not. There is no.
No, that's not. No. Oh, come on, man. I was hoping you. No. The greatest teacher failure is. That's what Yoda said. Come on, it's okay. He said a lot. He said a lot of things. Anyway, we have to, if we're doing what we should with learning and growing, you should make the necessary adjustments in your life. Don't cut toward yourself anymore. That kind of stuff. Make the adjustments so you're not constantly making the same mistake. Learn and grow and do better. That's what makes life easier. Yes, ma'am.
Failure is feedback.
Sure. That's a better way to look at it. It's easier. Feedback is a nicer word than failure for sure. I think it should also help us to gain a little bit of humility. Failure knocks us down. We might feel like we're really good at something, or we've got this on lock. There's no issue for us in this particular arena. But failure should help us to gain a little bit of humility and realize I'm not perfect. I've got my own issues. And look back at the guys the biblical people, characters. That's it. There you go. The biblical people that we looked at earlier. David and his adultery and his murder, and Peter and his denial of Jesus, and Paul. He spent the first half of his life persecuting the God that he was trying to worship. I hope that those guys went forward from those different scenarios more humble, didn't think so highly of themselves, and were able to interact with people in a much more humble way. It should also give us some wisdom. It should also, we get knowledge from books and from talking with people and watching and all that kind of stuff. But I think wisdom really, correct me if you have another take on this, I'm open to listen, but I kind of feel like really wisdom comes from making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. I think about people who are really good with money. Those people probably struggled a lot, at least a little bit, with money prior to them becoming really good with money, because they know what to do and they know what not to do.
Say it's the application of knowledge.
Well, sure. Sure. And I think about Paul in 1 Corinthians 6. He says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are beneficial. The knowing that all things are lawful, that's just knowledge. But knowing that that might not be good in this case or this particular scenario, that's the wisdom that we can gain by doing one of those things that may not be beneficial and it blowing up in our faces. And the most important thing that we should do, especially as Christians, is to help others. Other people are going through the same things and struggling with the same things that we are. And that's part of our jobs as brethren in Christ, is to help each other through those things. And we do it just normally like with our kids. We don't, I remember Dad trying to tell me and show me and instill wisdom in me to not cut towards myself. And I remember sitting at the dinner table one night, and he was showing me his hand and all the places on his hand that he's got scars from where he had cut himself. That kind of stuff. We don't, if we see our kids about to reach out to something that's hot, we don't just let them do it, because we know that's going to hurt. We try to help them to learn from our own mistakes. And Rachel and I are dealing with that kind of stuff now with our kids and the different things that they're talking about and getting into and stuff. And Aaron is getting kind of close with his girlfriend, and I've talked with Rachel, like, if they get farther and before they get married, I would like to sit down with them and just talk about, I want to basically convey all the stupid stuff I've done in my marriage and basically say, don't do this, 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 and this, because it's painful. The mistakes that I've made, they were painful, and I want them to learn from me and not make those same stupid mistakes, and hopefully their lives can be better. I think helping each other, I think that, to me, that's one of the most genius aspects of the church. I think one of Satan's greatest tools against us is convincing us that we are alone, convincing us that we're weird, or convincing us that nobody else is going to understand where you're coming from if you try to tell somebody.
Well, we are commanded to be a peculiar people.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think one of the things with failure too is what the devil loves to do is to convince you that that's normal, that this is the way it's always going to be now in this low.
Mhm.
Or on the highs as well too. That's the way it's always going to be. Is it's always going to be, you know, you should be at this very top level, the success, or you know, you have these spiritual highs, or now these spiritual lows, trying to convince you that this is the way it's always going to be. Where what we need to do is, it can't always be the high on the mountaintop with Jesus and Moses. We can't stay up there, and we can't stay down here at the low. What we need to do is pick ourselves back up, and like you said, and this is where we start making progress.
Mhm.
It's this middle ground.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, a big responsibility and a way that we can help each other to mitigate our failures and to help each other not do it so much is to reach out. Again, failure is embarrassing. Who wants to get up in front of everybody and say, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ? Nobody wants to do that. That's embarrassing. And like I said, we're afraid. People aren't going to understand. People might shun me now. But I promise you, whatever it is that you're struggling with, somebody here has gone through it. Or somebody here knows somebody that has gone through it and will be willing to sit down with you and talk to you about it. And you should be able to do that to somebody too. And I promise you, that relationship with that person is going to get stronger. Because when you go to try to help somebody else, you're putting yourself out. Even if that person's already going through something, a failure that they've had, you admitting to them, hey, I struggle with that too, that's putting yourself out there, man. You're making yourself vulnerable. And that's going to give you a much stronger and much more intimate relationship with your brother than you had previously. I think that's about it. Our time is, we got 2 or 3 more minutes left. Does anybody, yes, sir.
I had a teacher tell me one time, and I was fearful of speaking, that if you spent 5 minutes on your subject, you know more about it than anybody in that audience. So don't worry about it. Nobody knows what all you're thinking.
Easy to say,
I know.
hard to implement. Yes, ma'am.
One thing that I brought up with the middle schoolers last week with WBS was we were talking about Peter, and then I contrasted, you mentioned his failure denying Christ. And I told them, I was like, what do you think would have happened if Judas held off, not immediately gone out and hanged himself? If he had stayed until Jesus was resurrected and he had approached Jesus with a repentant heart, what his life could have turned into instead. And that's the point where, Judas saw failure
Mhm.
and he stopped. Peter saw failure and he kept going.
It upset him. He went away and he wept bitterly, but he got back up on that horse. Yes, ma'am.
Here's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that has really served me a lot in different things that I tried and it didn't work out. And the thing of it is, growing up as an adopted child at first, I took a lot of flack from cousins and that about who my mom was and who my dad was. But I wish I'd have known. Her quote is,
I'll leave you with yeah, they're about to come in. I'll leave you with one thing. I remember my very first job. I told a guy who'd been there for years. I said, I'm just afraid I'm going to mess up. I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong. I'm going to mess up. And he just very bluntly said, if you mess up, at least that means you're doing something. You could just be sitting there twiddling your thumbs, not doing anything. But if you're messing up, that at least means you're trying something. So I'll leave you with that. Don't give up. You're going to mess up, but keep trying. Thanks, guys, for the input and your attention.
I'm out of my teacher practice on how to silence. Somebody flip the light. Good evening. It's time for us to continue our time together. We have several people visiting with us, some coming with family, and some I think just passing through, and we're just very thankful that you stopped to be with us tonight. We'll invite you to come back on Sunday morning at 9:30, where we'll have our worship service together. We'd love for you to join us if you're in town. That's 9:30 on Sunday. For our members, I have just a couple of announcements. Several of these are sort of updates of things that have been announced before, have been coming through the email list this week. Continue to pray for Terry Green and her recovery, that things continue to improve a little bit. Terry Slack let me know that Terry Green is having a better day today, so hopefully things are moving in the right direction. Remember Beth Savory and her cornea surgery on July 8th. That's next Tuesday. And then Tony let me know here just a little bit ago, and we're scant on details about this, but Tony said that a brother in Christ, a man named T.J. Walker, was admitted into the emergency room at Arlington Memorial tonight. And we don't quite know what's going on there, but just to pray for T.J. Walker and the doctors administering to him. As far as news and notes, just a reminder to be praying for our high schoolers that are in camp this week, and then next week some of our other young people going off to camp, that they'll have a good experience together, worshiping God, getting to be with other Christians, and they have a good week with each other. This month, Brian Crawford and I will be doing the announcements, so if you have anything to add to the list or update on the list, just let one of us know and we'll make sure that it gets announced. Tonight we'll have our songs be led by Brother Gary Jones, invitation by Rustin, and then our prayer to close us out will be Andrew Petty.
230. This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. They're all expecting me, and that's one thing I know. My Savior pardoned me, and now I onward go. I know he'll take me through, though I am weak and poor, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land will live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their songs of sweetest praise drift back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Song of invitation be 344.
Good evening. Looking at this talk, this thought kind of came about with my brothers and my dad, just one of our text messages where we kick around different biblical topics and ideas. And my dad had stumbled across someone else's question. And just, oftentimes my dad, he tries to get us to just think and reason with the scriptures and just kind of go from that. But the idea is, which I don't agree with, but the idea was, when we die, do we just turn into almost like a spiritual mist, kind of like Buddhism, I guess, where you just become one with the universe? And so the question is, do we maintain our spiritual identity in eternity, versus just becoming part of God's Spirit and we lose all identity, which I personally believe we maintain our identity. And I'm going to try and reason with the Scriptures. And this is some of the things that I contributed with that, and of course taking in some other thoughts that my brothers and my dad had. But the question, again, are we going to be distinguished? And so just kind of looking back in the Scriptures, using some verses where God is very clear that our spirit is our personal spirit. It's very, very much our own that we possess. Whether we live in eternity or we die in eternity, either way, we maintain our spirit. But using the Spirit as part of our existence. Daniel in Daniel 7:15 says, "As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me." 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11 says, "For who among people knows the thoughts of a person except the spirit of the person that is in him?" Meaning our own spirit, contrasting or comparing that to who knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. Mary exclaimed that her spirit was unique to her, using the possessive in Luke chapter 1, verse 47 says, "And my spirit has rejoiced in God my Savior." Paul also using a possessive phrase to kind of identify the Spirit as something that we personally possess. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 18 says, "For they have refreshed my spirit and yours." The idea that Paul had his unique spirit and those who he's talking about had their unique spirit. But what about the spirit after death? We all know that the parable, which debate. I think it actually was true. Some people think it's just a parable, but I think the principle is still there, the rich man and Lazarus. When the rich man died, he maintained his identity. When Lazarus died, he maintained his identity. You can go back and you can think about that conversation that they have. Both of their souls went down to Sheol, and when they were there, if you remember, Abraham was there with his identity even after death. And the rich man begged for Abraham to just send Lazarus back with the drops, or just to go back and talk to his brothers. So not only did he maintain his identity, he remembered his family, his previous existence that we have there. Jacob, when he was mourning the death of, or what he thought was the death of Joseph, Genesis chapter 37, verse 35 says, "I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning." Meaning, even in the grave, he was expected to be missing his son. So now, what that means is we got to start thinking about not just our existence, but the existence of those that were there. Ultimately, I think this is kind of where the question went. Will we have enough wherewithal or awareness in eternity to where we will remember those who we love very, very dearly, but are unfaithful? Will we remember them, i.e., will there be tears in heaven? And so the emotion that we know that God feels, if you look at Jesus in the way that he reacted to his unfaithful brethren, his chosen people that were rejecting him, shortest verse in the Bible, John 11:35, Jesus wept. And it was that bitter, just uncontrollable weeping because he knew the ultimate end and the demise of his people. Matthew chapter 23 and Luke 13 talk about the idea where Jesus, you remember the verse that says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stone those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling." Just this idea of he was begging them to be faithful to him because he knew what the end result would be. So I don't know exactly. I will profess I've never been there yet, but by faith, I have an idea of what, and this was my answer to my family. If you look at verses, whether it's the context of the church or the context of eternal life, I think the principle is still there about the idea of God is not going to, he's going to protect us. I don't think there's going to be any kind of uncontrollable weeping that we're going to experience. It uses hyperbole, I think, in some of these verses. Jeremiah 31 says they will come and shout for joy shout for joy on the height of Zion, and they will be radiant over the bounty of the Lord. Then the virgin will rejoice in the dance, and the young men and the old together, for I will turn their mourning into joy and will comfort them and give them for joy in their sorrow. I think that's a messianic prophecy there, but I think the principle still applies. We also know that God was not going to allow Josiah to see the punishment that was coming to Israel. If you look at 2 Kings 22, verse 20, therefore, behold, I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be gathered to your grave in peace, and your eyes will not see the evil which I will bring on this place. So again, my point to them was that although we may not have an answer, we may not know exactly to what extent we'll be able to, or if we'll mourn at all for those that are not there. You can talk to brethren across the spectrum, and they're going to have their opinion on it. I went to college with a very, very good friend of mine, a faithful man with a faithful family, except his mother and his sister. And I still remember the conversation we had way back in college was the idea of, I don't want to not be able to mourn for my mother and my sister. I want to remember them. I don't want to forget them. And so, again, that question of how much will God let our mourning take place? I think by faith we have to accept that God is not going to allow us to have this crippling emotion in heaven. And so ultimately the point that we need to remember is, just like Jesus when he was here on this earth, when is the point of mourning? And right now, the point of mourning is now. We all have family, we all have friends that we know if God comes back today, they're going to be lost for an eternity. Now is the time to weep uncontrollably, in a sense, in a figurative sense, to the point where we're stirred up. If we love them and we don't want to miss them in heaven, now is the time to go out there and preach the gospel to them. Now is the time to save people by God's grace in this moment, because there will come a moment when it is too late for them. Whether we will be aware of it, to what extent, I don't know. But if we have family, we have friends that we love, now is the time to preach the gospel to them. That includes those that are here this evening. Now is the time. We will mourn. If you're not in a saved state, not everybody's going to make it. The question is, individually, does your spirit, is it right with God? And that's a question between you and God. What we can do is we can pray for you. We can study with you. If you need to put the Lord on in baptism, now is the time to do it, because we don't want to miss you in heaven with those who are saved of God's people. Not exactly your highest exciting of sermons or devotional talks or whatever, but it was just something that was close to my heart just because of that recent conversation with my brothers and my father. I don't want to mourn anybody. I've got some very close friends, and I'm going to miss them dearly. Just don't put it off till it's too late. They have to make that choice, but we gotta plant the seed. So if you're subject to the invitation, whatever you need, if you'll come right now as we stand and sing.
Entrance within demanding, whose is the voice I hear? Sweetly the tones are falling, open the door for me.
Let's bow. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for another wonderful day you've given us to learn about you and learn how to improve ourselves. We ask that we don't fear failure and what it may do to us, but rather we pray that if anything, it'll drive us forward, and after a while of our many failures, mistakes, and shortcomings will lead to a profitable and successful life, eventually leading to a life in heaven with you. Please keep those who are sick and hurt emotionally, physically, spiritually in your hands, and take care of them. Ensure that they heal to the fullest. Please watch over us as we go throughout this week and through the next. In Christ's name, amen.